Okay, so have you ever felt like totally stuck?
Mhm.
Like you want to start something, you have a goal, but you're just frozen because it has to be, perfect.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. It can be so frustrating, right? You end up procrastinating or getting stressed out, and it just feels impossible to actually move forward.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. Perfectionism, but not just what it is, but how to actually overcome it.
We're going to look at some practical strategies, some mindset shifts that can help you actually break free from that cycle of not good enough and actually, get things done.
And this is all based on some really interesting source material we've been digging into.
Yeah, lots of great research and insights from experts in the field.
It's funny because I think we often view perfectionism as a good thing, right? Like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. That means I have high standards.
Right, like it's almost a badge of honor.
But the truth is, as we've been reading, it can really be a major roadblock.
Oh, absolutely. It can lead to procrastination, stress, burnout. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, and our sources actually highlight some pretty surprising negative consequences.
Like,
Well, for one, damaged self-esteem. I mean, who knew that aiming high could actually lower your confidence?
it seems counterintuitive, right? But it makes sense when you think about it. The constant pressure to be perfect sets us up for disappointment. And that fear of not measuring up, well, it can be paralyzing.
It can even lead to completely avoiding tasks altogether, right? Like if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all.
Exactly. So instead of making progress, we're stuck spinning our wheels.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. And a big part of this, according to the research, is getting caught in the trap of unrealistic expectations,
Oh, yeah. Perfectionists tend to set these impossibly high standards for themselves.
which makes it almost impossible to ever feel like you're actually succeeding.
Right. It's like trying to reach a finish line that keeps moving farther and farther away. You're running and running, but never actually getting anywhere.
Ugh, that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So what's the solution? How do we get out of this trap?
Well, one of the things our sources suggest is focusing on setting what they call good enough goals.
Good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know, that sounds a little settling.
I know it might sound that way at first, but it's not about lowering your standards. It's about making them work for you. It's about shifting your focus from perfection to progress.
Okay, so how do you define a good enough goal?
It's about setting realistic, achievable targets that align with your values and your priorities. So, for example, instead of saying, I need to write the perfect novel, you might say, I'm going to write for 1 hour every day.
Right, so it's more about the process than the end result.
Exactly. And this is where having a growth mindset comes in.
A growth mindset.
Yeah, it's about embracing challenges and seeing mistakes not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow.
Okay, I like that. So it's not about being perfect, it's about constantly improving.
Precisely. It's like imagine learning to code. You're going to encounter bugs, you're going to run into errors,
Oh,
right?
oh yeah, definitely.
But each one of those mistakes teaches you something. It helps you refine your code and ultimately make your program stronger.
I love that analogy. It makes it so much less intimidating.
And this all ties into the idea of letting go of control, which can be a big one for perfectionists.
Right, because we often get so caught up in trying to control every tiny detail.
And ironically, that can actually hinder our progress.
Okay, I'm following you. But isn't there a danger in being too lax? Like, if we're constantly aiming for good enough, won't we just end up settling for mediocrity?
That's a really good question. And it highlights the importance of being intentional with our goals. Good enough doesn't mean lowering our standards. It means setting standards that are challenging yet attainable. It's about finding that sweet spot between pushing ourselves and accepting that we don't have to be perfect in every single thing we do.
Okay, so it's about striving for excellence, but not getting hung up on perfection.
Exactly. And that leads us to another crucial point, celebrating those small wins.
Which I think is something that perfectionists often struggle with.
Totally. Because we're so focused on the flaws, on what we could have done better, we forget to acknowledge the progress we've made.
And our source material suggests a really interesting tool for this, keeping a progress journal. You ever tried that?
A progress journal. Yeah, it's incredibly helpful, actually. Just taking a few moments each day to jot down your accomplishments, even the small ones, and the things you learned from your mistakes. It's like training your brain to see the progress, not just the imperfections.
That's such a powerful idea. It's almost like those gratitude journals where you write down what you're thankful for. It's all about shifting your perspective, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating.
So, to sum it all up, What we've learned today is that perfectionism, while it might seem like a positive trait, can actually hold us back in so many ways.
Yeah, it can prevent us from starting projects, from taking risks, from achieving our full potential.
So instead of striving for perfection, it's about focusing on setting realistic goals, embracing the learning process, and celebrating those small wins along the way.
It's a powerful mindset shift, and it can really unlock a whole new level of productivity and personal growth.
So here's something I want you to think about as we wrap up. What's one goal you've been putting off? Maybe for weeks, months, even years, because you were scared it wouldn't be perfect. What if you applied what we talked about today, those strategies, and just took that first step, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect? Remember, progress, even imperfect progress, is so much more fulfilling than chasing an unattainable ideal.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, that's it for our deep dive today. We'll see you next time.